in lies, where corruption and evil reign. This summer, the fight for truth continues. The Red Pill Project. AlphaWarrior. Defcon 0.
Another head hangs slowly, child is slowly taken. The violence causes silence. Who are we taken? Tanks and their bombs and their guns and their guns. In your head, they're crying. In your head, this is extremely dangerous to our democracy. What's in your head?
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment with a new government controlled by you, the American people. There is nothing the political establishment will not do.
Defcon 0.
What's up, my brother Josh Reed? Thank you for everybody that's watching Badlands on Rumble, for watching Badlands on YouTube, watching Badlands on X. You saw the premiere about a month ago, and the voices were heard. You guys were, we want more of that. And we said, we think we got something going, and we made it work. We're going to see if this can flow. We're going to do a 4 or 5 week trial period here, you guys. And if you, the audience, loves it, this will be around to stick around permanently. This is Defcon 0, Unfiltered, Uncensored, Unfolding, Episode 1. Josh.
What's up, man? I'm glad to be back on Badlands. For all the Badlanders out there, if you remember a show, The Earth Chronicles, with David Whitehead and myself, unfortunately, David started his dojo. We just didn't have time to do the show anymore, but we are back now, me and Alpha, with Defcon 0. And if you notice that 0, the O has a little Q thing going to it. So I'm just going to put that out there that, you know, there's a kind of a, we're going to be talking about some things here, people. And I want people to understand that. Now, like Alpha said, this is a trial. So if you guys like this show, if the Badlanders, my audience, Alpha's audience, love this show, you got to hit that thumbs up on those channels that you're at, whether it's Rumble, YouTube, X, wherever you're at. Hit those thumbs up, like, share, comment, and keep that chat going. We already got one super chat right there with a thumbs up with Never NV Runner. Thank you so much for that Rumble rant. Appreciate that, brother. And Alpha, you know, I was trying to get in the title of tonight's show. And I'll just go ahead and tell everybody. Tonight's title is The Plan to Save the World. Because, you know, that's how it started for me. I remember 2017, it was December 2017, and, you know, I'm all on 4chan and 8chan and going through, and there's all different types of stuff going on during those times on 4chan. So it was pretty crazy stuff. And, you know, a few months later, Joe M., a guy by the name of Joe M., puts out The Plan to Save the World. And when I started to watch it from that perspective, other than kind of seeing it on the Great Awakening thread on Reddit and on Twitter at the time, I started to realize that there's something more going on than what meets the eye. And at that point in time, I started doing an abundance of research. And anybody knows me, they call me Joshopedia. I love to do research. I love to deep dive into topics. And I started going through my notes because I keep journals, and I was stationed in Washington, D.C. for a long time. I have some big contacts out there when I was stationed in Washington, D.C. and worked there with the Navy Yard, and I was private security for congressmen and senators, and I did a lot of different stuff out there. So I started kind of cross-correlating what I was hearing with certain things, and I go, oh my goodness, this really is a military operation. And I hope tonight that we can help people out with that.
We're absolutely going to help them out to that. But I got to remember, we got ads now. So let me run through these ads. Run through these ads real quick. And what I'll say to add to what Josh said, you guys are going to get a perspective, and you're obviously going to hear us talking about these 17 decodes, but they're going to be in a way that no one's done before. Why? Because they're going to be realistic, and we're going to show you how they actually apply. But what comes after that? This is not just going to be the regurgitation. This is going to be stuff that has practical application to what you're seeing in real life right now. But with that, let's get to our first ad, and then we'll get into this show. And you guys, listen, we're live. I know people are, is it a can show? No, we're live. So when those Rumble rants come in, if we have a moment of pause, we'll get to them. If not, maybe we'll do it at the end of the show. We'll find out what works, and we'll go from there. So first on deck, you guys, welcome Save Pulse. Today's show is sponsored by Save Pulse. Save Pulse is dedicated to keeping you and your family healthy with top quality medications like amoxicillin, azithromycin. I said that wrong. Erythromycin. Thank you, brother. Ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine at unbeatable prices. The streamlined ordering process makes it easy to stock up on all your health essentials. And now, with exciting news about fenbendazole showing promise in cancer research, they proudly offer this alongside antibiotics and viral care meds. Don't wait. Prepare for a healthy scenario today. Get your supply and stay ahead of the curve and save Pulse. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use promo code SAVEHEALTH at checkout to get 20% discount on orders over $100. Again, visit badlandsmedia.tv/meds and use promo code SAVEHEALTH to save 20% discount. So, and with that, our next one, Rise. These people have some awesome merch. And I'll tell you this, I think the people over there at Rise Attire are going to like what we got going on here at Defcon 0. And I definitely see merch in the future. So here's Rise. And when we come back, it's time to kick off this show.
Howdy, Badlanders. Looking for something new to grab from your friends at Badlands Media and Rise Attire? Summertime is here. We got you covered. All new tank tops for men and women, featuring new iterations of the Devolution design in black, red, white, and even blue and green digital camo. Sick. We got them for Psywar and Clown World too. How about these bad boys? Psywar, Clown World, and Devolution beach towels to help you spark up a conversation with your new best friend or future spouse at the pool. And by popular demand, we've got all new athletic women's leggings that'll have you red-pilling all the ladies in your Pilates class, whether they like it or not. Too bad. This is Badlands, baby, and we're strapped. Get some and support the new media parallel economy as much as fucking possible at badlandsmedia.tv/rise.
And they got some dope stuff, you guys. Badlandsmedia.tv/rise to get that stuff. And then remember, again, Save Pulse. They are the ones sponsoring today's show. You'll see that on the bottom graphic of the screen. Oh, one more thing, you guys. We're going to be doing call-ins at the end of our shows. We're not going to do it tonight because we got to gauge the flow of this and how it works. But just know moving forward, when we wrap up the show, we're going to be taking call-ins real time with you guys to ask us questions, comment on the show, or maybe you just want to have a quick conversation with us. So call-ins are going to be coming in. We tested them in the premiere. You guys liked it, and I think it's something that we agree would definitely add to the show. So with that, Josh, the plan to save the world, baby.
Yeah, let's get into it. But first, what I want to do is I want to take care of the Rumble rants that I see coming in. We have Lopat67, $10 Rumble rant, fire intro. Thanks. Give a shout out to Nate with Up and Down Media out there. He does all my intros. He did the intro to Defcon 0. We're working with him on a lot of other content. He's fantastic. So appreciate that, my brother. And then we have SQ Quinn, $20 Rumble rant. Let's kick off this new show. Everyone, thumbs up and support the guys. So excited. This will be weekly. Thanks, Josh and Alpha. Thank you, Sonia. JK Nerdy, $5. I'll throw in. Appreciate that, appreciate that, JK. And then we have Let the Arrest Begin. Get the 10 subscriptions to Badlands. Thank you so much. Let the Arrest Begin. Now we have me53, I'm in, and then Lopad again gifted 5 subscriptions to Badlands. So thanks, guys. Keep them coming in. Appreciate it. It's how you help support everything that we're doing in the alt media arena. We actually are not the alt media. We are the media now. And you know what? I think that that's a great point. We are the media now. And I want to preface this because, guys, that's what it was all about. That whole psychological warfare operation that we called 17, that's what it was all about. It was about taking back the idea of information. When you start to look at what I call the multi-domain battlefield, you know, Alpha, you were in the military, I was in the military. It's a multi-domain battlefield. We have air, we have space, we have land, we have sea, we have cyber. But the one interesting thing about all of those domains is that there's one primary domain that encompasses them all. That's information. Information encompasses them all. All of them that are integrated and connected through a weave of information. And for the longest time, the global elite, the deep state, all of them have controlled the aspect of information. Whether it's the news and media, whether it's Hollywood, whether it's what politicians do, say, and think, or think tanks coming down with regulation and policy that gets trickled down into advertising campaigns done by multinational corporations, what you think for the longest time had been controlled by a system. The people who brought about that movement, the 17 movement, understood this and realized that we were at a transitional time frame in our country, in the world. And I can talk a little on that transitional time frame. You know, Alpha, do you remember Blockbuster Video?
Bro, be
Right?
kind. Rewind.
So you want to know something funny about Blockbuster Video is they had an offer for a $250 million buyout back in the early 2000s from a company called Netflix, who was a digital streaming platform who was worth nothing at the time. And Blockbuster Video said, nah, we're good. Nothing's going to get rid of brick and mortar video. And then they entered the scene too late with digital streaming. They were trying to charge $25 a video rental for digital streaming. And they eventually went almost out of business. I think there's 1 or 2 stores left. But in other words, they missed the movement. They missed the transition of technology. They were dealing with VHS videos and DVDs in brick and mortar stores, and they never thought that that was going to go away. And what happened is digital storage and virtual computing, being able to spool up a virtual machine, cloud computing, took over the world. Well, something very, very similar occurred around 2010. The infrastructure, the digital infrastructure, the internet, the capability to spool up virtual machines anywhere became incredibly cheap because of the abundancy of the amount of data centers that were being built by companies like Amazon and Google and Meta throughout the world, as well as cloud storage increase. What this did is it increased the information dissemination capacity of digital media to be more profound, and this is when phones kind of got their upgrade. So things like Twitter started to take over, 124 word tweets or character tweets. Memes, 2 to 3 minute short videos started to run the airwaves, doing way better than 30-minute to 60-minute news and media broadcasts of the mainstream media. But the interesting thing is that the news and media didn't grasp it. The news and media thought that it was always going to be people buying a la carte, you know, cable TV bundles from Comcast or whoever they were buying their cable TV from. They never thought that their subscription model would fail. But instead, what happened is a revolution in digital media occurred, and they were left behind. That's when people who were integrated in this movement, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, began to look and say, we have a prime opportunity right now to redefine the idea of information. This is an information war. And so if we can go in there and we can get people thinking, if we can get people to see the public information that the news media isn't reporting on, that they don't know exist, and begin to intertwine, take the breadcrumbs and put it all together, we can create a media conglomerate that is decentralized, that is alternative to the mainstream, that informs people and puts them on the right track of what is actually happening in the world. And that's what we saw over the last decade. But the question, Alpha, comes is, how did it begin? How did all of it start? Why did military generals say that, hey, there's something going on here. Someone's trying to take over our country. We got to get involved and we got to take it back. And now I am a firm believer for everybody out there that there are military generals, less than 10, involved in this. And the funny thing is I know a few of them. We all know a few of them. And we know who these people are, although they would probably never admit it. Now, I want to tell you a little information that was given to me. I was actually one of the first... Alpha, do you remember January 6th, the Oath Keepers?
I do.
Stuart Rhodes? I know
do.
Stuart Rhodes. I haven't seen Stuart Rhodes in over 15 years. I was one of the first Oath Keepers. I was one of the first 100 Oath Keepers in the world. I got my original shirt in my closet.
I did not know that.
That's right. 2008, when I was in Washington, D.C., I helped run the Virginia chapter. And I would run and organize events in Washington, D.C. We had Congressman Ron Paul come in. We had different types of senators come in. And we would do mock town halls and all types of things. Well, through these types of events that we would hold, I would meet a lot of interesting people. One of the people that I met there was a retired 4-star admiral, the United States Navy. And he was interested in me because I was active duty Navy at the time. And we became friends. We started talking, and he knew I was in the conspiracy, and my prime conspiracy was September 11th, 9/11. What really happened? And he goes, "Oh, I don't think you're ready for all of that." And he started telling me the kind of follow the trail of money. But then he told me something specifically. He said, if you really want to know what's going on in the world, he says, go and look at various different incidences that happen with military technology and ask yourself, with the knowledge that you have working on weapon defense missile control systems with a security clearance, doing missile onloads and offloads, having friends that have direct access to nuclear weapons, knowing the process of that handling, is if this makes sense. And I'm like, I'll check that out. Well, I started researching this. 2007 and 2008, two specific events happened. Number one event is that you had some AGM-125 nuclear warheads in Minot, North Dakota, that were loaded onto a B-52 bomber. Okay? The B-52 bomber, with these armed nuclear warheads, flies halfway across the country, Alpha, before they realize, hey, there's nuclear warheads on that thing, turn it around. But that's not the real story. That's what they tell you in the news. The real story is it goes missing from radar for almost 2 hours. No one knew where it was. So let me ask you this, being a Marine, have you ever done an ammo onload or offload, or you've been in an LHA that's going overseas and you guys do an ammo onload and all the precautions that you have to take when you're bringing missiles or stuff like that on? The amount of signatures required for like an SM-3 missile to come on board. Now imagine what happens with a nuclear warhead that is contained in an underground bunker that is behind a massive vault that's contained around lead barricades, that has 2 security guards out of it, requires commanding officer and executive officer authority just to move them or get into the locker. The nuclear officer has to sign off on every movement of these warheads. It takes 2 people to enable the codes on the warheads to activate them. And somehow, these nuclear warheads got loaded onto a B-52 bomber, activated, and nobody knew.
Not buying
to me,
it.
that doesn't make much fucking sense. So I start looking into things like that. And then there's another one. This is where it gets really crazy, because I like connecting the past and the future, right? Future proves the past, right? This other event happened at the Defense Logistics Agency in Utah. This is crazy. I want people to listen to this because this is fucking nuts. So Minot, North Dakota had some ICBM nuclear triggers. These are electronic triggers. They're specific technology developed by the United States military. And they transfer this classified technology from Minot to the Defense Logistics Agency in Utah. They get received by a defense contractor known as EG&G in Utah. Right? EG&G takes this technology in, looks at it, and says, must be helicopter batteries. Labels the 4 boxes helicopter batteries, puts them on a shelf with thousands of boxes of helicopter batteries. Just so happens, those 4 boxes out of all the thousands get put on a plane sent to Taiwan. In Taiwan, they get sent to this one facility. In the middle of going to that facility, they get redirected to a boat heading over to China. And the Taiwanese intelligence agency interdicted that boat and found these ICBM nuclear triggers. And they say, hey, what's this? It's not radio batteries.
Which that in of itself is a whole story that they would know to do interdiction on that boat.
Right. So this comes back and it causes kind of a scandal in the Air Force and in the chain of command. Now, here's the key, is when it leaves Minot, there's a chain of custody. When it enters the Defense Logistics Agency, there's a chain of custody. Apparently, there was no chain of custody on these nuclear triggers. Now, the one thing I'm going to tell people about is whatever was on that B-52 bomber and what was ever in that box were not what they're telling us they are. That's the first thing I want people to know. Now, with these nuclear triggers, both of these incidences are similar to what's known as a broken arrow, where highly advanced, deadly technology is lost or missing. Now, this prompts certain security procedures within the United States military. Not the type of stuff where they're calling the president, but basically groups of generals who kind of have their own little clique come together and go, what the hell just happened? And they start to analyze and look at things. And they would reach out to people in like the Senate Armed Services Committee, like the chairman. And they say, hey, we just had this incident happen. We need cover in the media, so we need to tell them that this is what's going on, but this is what just happened. Now, EG&G, the contractor, the Defense Logistics Agency. Now, do you remember a guy by the name of Bob Lazar?
I do.
Bob Lazar, Area 51 S4, was recruited by Ed Teller, said he worked on these aircraft that were exotic technology, not from this Earth, right? He was hired by a general contractor who helped build Area 51, runs the Janet flights out of Nellis to Area 51, and also operates the facility known as S4, where a lot of our special operators go and do training. The name of that general contractor was EG&G. Just find that interesting because they have a history from the Manhattan Project to current date of handling highly classified special access program technology. Now, when this box of batteries comes back, this prompts massive punishment for the people involved. The head of the Defense Logistics Agency was reprimanded and forced into retirement. He now works in the defense industry. Now, his name was Lieutenant General Kevin Sullivan.
Let me pause right here real quick, Josh, because our numbers have jumped significantly since we started, which, one, thank you guys for joining here. But to recap what we're going to accomplish in this show is obviously you see the 0 in Defcon 0 is not an O at the end of that. There's the very special letter Q that's there. We're going to walk you through how we got here. The foundation for this. A lot of you love and appreciate these codes, but not everybody understands how it came into life. And so we're walking you through that process to get there. So for those that have just joined, love you. Thanks for joining. Smash that thumbs up. I hope you kept on thought, Josh. I just want to let people know.
I know exactly where I am. So, by the way, Peter Frederick on YouTube, thank you so much for that YouTube super chat right there. And then we have again here, Bread Market 62, $50 on Rumble. Wishing you both successful. Semper Paratus. Thank you much, friend. Appreciate that. So, Lieutenant General Kevin Sullivan. He gets forced into retirement, goes and works for the military industrial complex is what you need to know here. Now, there's something interesting, Alpha, about Lieutenant General Kevin Sullivan. Now, have you ever heard like the deep state keeps things in the family?
Yep.
Like their children are groomed to be deep staters. Their daughters are groomed to marry high, powerful people. This is what is meant by follow the wives, right? And we can get into Lynn Forrester, Day Rothschild. We can get into Jill Biden. We can get into McCain's wife, all of these people.
If there's anything that I have learned from doing the Operation Gladio series is the freaking nepotism that is involved.
The Fourth Reich is the blonde-haired, blue-eyed wives of all these people. If anybody wanted to wonder.
Insane, man. Insane.
So they keep it in the family. And the sons are usually there to kind of be agitators, instigators, run movements, and then eventually move into politics. Well, guess what? Did you know that Kevin Sullivan, Lieutenant General Kevin Sullivan, has a son. He actually has two sons. One of them's an adopted son. His name's Jonathan Sullivan. Have you ever heard of Jaden X?
I have. Can I tell you?
January 6th? Yeah, go ahead.
Let me tell you why this one's so important. Because if you rewind the clock, Josh, all the way back to January 15th of 2021, when the FBI raided my house, and were telling me, you're this crazy, QAnon guy, right? And I told him, listen, anybody with a phone, tablet, or computer that has seen the videos of Jaden X knows exactly what's going on and what he's tied into. Now, this was before I knew who his father is. So what you're about to describe and this family history right here is important, because he was the only name that I got brought up in my case. And when they did a summary transcription of my statement and listed, different things that I was bringing up, you know what they didn't put in that summary?
What's that?
Me talking about Jaden X.
So Jaden X is his freaking son. And so when I learn this in the future, like, whoa, right? So this is what we begin to understand. Is during this time frame, they realized that somebody inside the military, inside government contractors, and collaborating with high-level general and admirals and maybe even senators and congressmen are helping to steal highly classified technologies under special access programs and ship them to our adversaries, specifically China. This is what was discovered. Now, you can go back to the Bill Clinton SOX scandal. Remember when he gave China nuclear weapons, when he gave North Korea nuclear weapons? The same type of scenario, except this was done clandestinely and through an infiltration within government so that they could cover up their tracks along the way. Now, if people can understand that, they understand what happens next. When these generals realize what's happened, what I call constitutional generals realize what happened, they can't go to Congress because Congress could be complicit. They can't go to the DODIG. He might be complicit. They can't go to the Secretary of Defense. He's probably complicit. So what do they have to do? Well, they're generals. They have an oath to the United States Constitution to the people. They have the power and authority. They have their own intelligence apparatus, for goodness sake. So what they do is, and I got this from a good source after the fact. What they did is they reached out to a gentleman, the chairman of the Armed Forces Services Committee, a long-term senator who was found to have zero scandals throughout his whole life and to be 100% faithful to the United States Constitution. And they reached out to him. It was one of the only civilian people that they brought in because they needed to secure funding under special access programs to do what they were about to do next. That gentleman's name, Jeff Sessions. All right? Jeff Sessions. So this group of generals at the time, they create an intelligence operation through the National Security Agency under a special access program for a period of about 4 years, from 2008 to 2012, spying, trying to uncover who the deep state was. Now, I think that this is important. They were utilizing digital mediums to try to find out who in Congress, who in Senate, who in military contractors, who in the bureaucracy, who in the international community is trying to sell U.S. weapons. Well, this is where the fun begins.
Let me interrupt you. This is where the fun begins, because this is a question that I've had. Is if we rewind the clock back a couple of decades and we go to another president that a lot of people love, President John F. Kennedy, and gives a famous speech, a few days before he ends up taking, the bullet that dealt with him. I'll try to be careful. I'm trying to remember that we're on the devil's YouTube over there.
Yeah.
And he makes his speech, gosh, of course, now I would have a mind bug about secrecies. I usually can say off that particular sentence that he says, but we're tired of the secret agencies essentially that exist in the government is what he says in this speech. That was a public declaration that he was going to take on the deep state apparatus. And obviously we saw how that unfolded. It's my opinion, Josh, that what the good guys learned at that time, be it whether they were a formal white hat operation, whether it was just a bunch of good guys mixed in with bad guys, But obviously there was someone there giving JFK the intelligence that he needed to know that these secret societies existed and that he was going to deal with it. So he was getting some intel that disclosed this. But I think the people that survived that coup then realized that if you wanted to take on this deep state apparatus, it was not going to be done through the letters that exist in our policy, our law of war manuals, and our constitution, the way they were written at the time, and that things were going to have to change. The war was going to have to change. And I think that's what kind of brought, because if they would have tried, okay, we'll just go for round two a couple of decades from now when we line up the next president, and if they try to approach it the same way, I think it would have been a failed attempt. I think what they learned from that time to this time was how this war was going to have to be fought against the deep state. And I think that's kind of why we are where we are right now, fighting it the way we're fighting it right now.
And the gentleman, the 4-star admiral that I knew in Washington, D.C., was one of the intelligence advisors to President John F. Kennedy. Just an FYI. So, going in here. Now, we went through Jeff Sessions. So now we're in the. So what they do is they create an intelligence operation through the National Security Agency, the spy on the deep state, right? I mean, this is important. You want to find out who's selling military secrets, stolen military secrets, who's selling this technology to China. And what do we uncover? We start to uncover various different things. Well, actually, what happens next is the Obama comes in. And Obama begins to decimate our military, defunding and getting rid of what? Constitutional generals. He starts an educational exchange program in 2008 with China, allowing China to come into U.S. universities and professors to go over to China. In 2010, we start to see weird hacks occurring. You remember when George Bush's emails were hacked and put online? And you had, what was it, the something Pokey Bear or whatever it was from Russia was blamed for it. You have all these email hacks. And this led up eventually to, obviously, the WikiLeaks emails that come out. And the data dumps of someone giving WikiLeaks massive amounts of dumps of data. Well, I want to fast forward a little bit because there's some things that happen that we begin to see. And I want people to look in on this and see that these people are really patriots and that they were trying to tell us all along, but it got stifled. So 2012 is the culmination of a lot of this stuff, right? Now, we see a whole bunch of email leaks that begin to come out, WikiLeaks emails that point to Pizzagate, right? Well, someone tipped off a reporter at the time by the name of Andrew Breitbart and gave him Pizzagate in his hand, and he broke it to the world. A few months later, he's dead. Heart attack, running, 42 years of age. Right? Another reporter during the same time, by the name of Michael Hastings, a liberal, by the way, Rolling Stones magazine, he did an expose on General Stanley McChrystal when he was running the operations in Afghanistan. And he published in his article, expose, of some things that McChrystal said about Obama, which eventually got McChrystal fired. And I believe that was done on fire. Now, McChrystal, I think, is a deep stater through and through. But here's the key, is right after that, Michael Hastings started investigating then CIA Director John Brennan for the utilization of a highly advanced technology that the CIA was using to hijack vehicles and crash them to make it look like an accident when it was really an assassination. And he was starting to put all of this out. He was talking to his friends. He had it all organized. And then what happens to Michael Hastings? His Mercedes goes 150 miles per hour into a tree, engulfs in the flames. They say he was drinking. He hadn't drinking over a year, and it's all covered up. Now, the question is, Alpha, who gave Michael Hastings that information? That information about John Brennan, the CIA, and the technology they had. Now, it had to be someone he met through his connections with General Stanley McChrystal, right? Well, do you know who Michael Hastings' liaison was in Afghanistan, the Stanley McChrystal?
Was it another general?
Well, no, it was his chief of staff, which was a colonel. A colonel at the time by the name of Colonel Charles Flynn, whose brother just happened to be General Michael Flynn, the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency. So where do you think Michael Hastings got that information? Colonel Charles Flynn, who got it from his brother, General Michael Flynn. Now, why was it? What's that?
Now generals.
Which are both retired generals, right? Now, why is that important? Because in 2012, Obama gets reelected and he fires over 130 constitutional generals in a clean sweep. At the same time, you have a whistleblower come forth at the NSA and expose what's known as Project Prism, a data collection on American citizens. That guy's name was Edward Snowden. Now, Alpha, do you remember them talking on the news about Project Prism and how it was spying on Congress, spying on the president, spying on Senate, spying on defense contractors, on the international heads of state? Wait, isn't that what I just said the military was doing to try to find who was selling military secrets? And Snowden exposed the program. Snowden was a protege of John Brennan at the CIA. He came recommended into the NSA, went to Hawaii, got into the program, worked his way up, and then exposed it. Now, if you go to the boards, 2993, March 7th, 2019, why did Snowden only engage and attack the NSA? Question mark.
Well, give that post number one more time because I'm going to bring it up.
I can pull it up right now.
Yeah, fire it off.
I got it right here. I didn't memorize all that. Right here. Why did Snowden only engage and attack the NSA? If Snowden really cared about privacy, citizenship awareness, why didn't he expose the CIA's main programs? Snowden was privy to DARPA, IQT, NASA surveillance, NSA surveillance, and covert projects. Why did Snowden only focus on the NSA? Where did Snowden work prior to the NSA? He worked for John Brennan at the CIA. Ask yourself a very simple question. Would you release, go live to the public across the media, all highly classified material, NSA, prior to getting to your end destination? Or would you logically travel to your end destination, then release publicly? Why Russia, the planned location? Why Russia? Why did China, Hong Kong, let him out of the country? Was there a red security alert put out to prevent passport travel across nations? Yes, there was. Why did China grant access? Because China and Russia were the end receivers of the technology that program was trying to shut down. Snowden exposed the constitutional general's operation to weed out the deep state. So what happens next? That program had amassed massive amounts of information. So what do you get? WikiLeaks emails. The WikiLeaks emails get released, Hillary Clinton's email. But what happens? A congressman in New York City sends a freaking text message to a 16-year-old girl, absolutely nude of his dick and all this stuff. An anonymous tip comes into the NYPD. They go after this guy and they seize his laptop. His name, Anthony Weiner. Who was the anonymous tip? NSA. Mike Rogers, Admiral Mike Rogers at the NSA, and good patriot generals who were watching that information. They were already watching Anthony Weiner. They knew what was on his laptop, a folder that said insurance policy that was collected by his wife, Huma Abedin. Huma Abedin was the chief of staff to Hillary Clinton. Huma Abedin's father just happens to be one of the co-founders of the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood had infiltrated our country from 2008 on forth. We know this DHS whistleblower by the name of Phil Haney, 2010, one of the senior executive staff over the DHS, comes out, blows the whistle on how the Muslim Brotherhood is infiltrating Valerie Jarrett. She's freaking Iranian, people. Do you understand? She's a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. They had a Muslim takeover. John Brennan. What was this today? John Brennan, and you have what's known as the Analysis Corporation. They are the ones that broke in to the National Archives and changed Barack Obama's passport records to show that he was not in Pakistan in the 1980s with John Brennan, with Brzezinski, right? The Analysis Corporation was caught doing this prior to 2008.
And then sealed everything.
And then sealed everything. So I want people to see that this conspiracy is grand. But this is what the military was dealing with. Is you have a deep state infiltration. Military, Congress, Senate, bureaucracy, intelligence agencies, and they were everywhere. And you have a few different generals trying to take them out. And what happened in 2012? We lost. We lost. When they shut down that operation at the NSA, who was the group that came out and started the hunt Snowden? Do you know the name of it?
I do not.
The Q group.
I was not aware of that, bro.
You were not aware of that? Hold on.
No, and we've talked about this.
Yep. I'll pull it up right now.
While you're doing that, I will tell her, but actually, I'll post it for you guys that don't want to search for it. I'll throw it on the different social medias. Last year, Patrick Bet David had Anthony Weiner on the podcast, and there's a segment in there, and it goes on for about a good, I'll say 12, 15 minutes. Well, I mean, it's an entire interview, but this particular part of the interview, he's questioning Anthony Weiner about all the relationships connected to the Clintons.
Oh, I remember this.
Bodyguards, Secret Services, everybody that's died. And you can, I mean, Anthony Weiner looks so, he's pissed and uncomfortable in that conversation. Go ahead and fire it off.
Right there. Inside the Q group, the directive hunting down Edward Snowden.
And what's the date of that article?
This is June 10th, 2013.
June 10th.
Top secret Q group has been chasing Ed Snowden since he disappeared in May. Eli Lake on the Intel Community's internal police and why the agency is in complete freakout mode. Now, for everybody out there, I haven't even started yet. We are just at the tip of the iceberg. I had to give you the foundational history to understand what Q is and why Q is, right? So, 2012, we lose. Obama gets reelected, steals the freaking election, goes out there, and it doesn't matter because the Republican candidates at this time were just nothing more than controlled patsies, right? Fires all of these generals. What happens? Flynn leaves. Flynn retires. Rogers takes over the NSA. What does Flynn put out in 2016 on his Twitter account? He says, investigate John Podesta's spirit cooking. The NSA puts a tweet out on Twitter in 2015 stating, hash, gives a hash of a John Podesta WikiLeaks email that says, investigate, this tweet will disappear, and it disappeared. The NSA was working for you and trying to tell us what was going on all along. So what happened? Well, they had lost at that point, and they realized that they had to take a different approach. And this is when General Michael Flynn gives his famous speech to the Young Republicans Convention in Washington, D.C., running with Donald Trump, that we have an army of digital soldiers. That this was asymmetric warfare at its finest, people. Infiltration. That we have to take back the idea of information. That was the truth. They understood exactly what needed to be done. And we know that Donald Trump was activated, recruited by these people a long time ago. And Donald Trump was chosen to be this candidate. And they picked the right time to bring him in during this time. Now, go back to the Wiener laptop thing, right? Now, they get the Wiener laptop, it disappears. We know what happened to the investigators at the NYPD that were investigating that. But something else happens in the meantime. Hillary Clinton's home email server. Now, this really doesn't come to light until after the 2016 election. Now, I want to lay a few things out for people. The idea in the fact that we won the 2016 election is nothing more than a miracle, just like Butler, Pennsylvania. You have to understand what happened.
I got to interrupt here. Just for a second because you brought up Butler, Pennsylvania.
Sure.
I was in. Some of you guys may like this. Yeah, take a breath, brother. I got you. But don't lose your thought or your flow. I just want to interject this because I'll forget. We had a congressman come into a virtual town hall that other people like to call AKA Spaces. Corey Mills. That's who came in. Some of you may like him, some of you may not. But nonetheless, he has a connection. He's well known. He's been a part of some very important committees, especially with the intelligence. He was asked this question by somebody. As a matter of fact, he was asked the question by Brick Suit. A lot of you guys know Brick Suit, who goes to the rallies. He wears a suit that looks like a brick, right? Me and him go at it constantly. I actually think he was asking this question as a jab at me, but maybe that's just me being narcissistic. But he asks Congressman Corey Mills. There's been a lot of speculation around there being 2 shooters in Butler, Pennsylvania. He goes, you're part of the guys that went out there, reviewed the scene. He went out there with Eli Crane. And you guys, are part of this committee that's looking into this, right? Can you tell us that these conspiracies, that there's more than 2 shooters? Can you quell those conspiracies? And he says, well, listen, we don't have all the answers yet. He goes into a rant where he says, listen, we're trying to get information. A lot of time has passed. He would not say there was not 2 shooters. He did not say it.
Well, because we know there was 2 shooters.
100%. And it was interesting for me to see, because it was a space with predominantly normies. And it was interesting to see people's kind of light bulbs go out and be like, he didn't say no. As a matter of fact, he said, we still need more information. And so at a minimum, they're considering the possibility. Now, we do know that there was 2. It's proven, by the audio that caught it, the angles, etc. That's neither here nor there. But I just wanted to bring people into Butler, Pennsylvania, and that you had an active congressman that would not say that there was not 2 shooters in Butler, Pennsylvania. And hopefully you didn't lose your track on that one.
I did not, because we're going to go from Butler, Pennsylvania to Ukraine. All right. So we have to understand that it was a miracle Donald Trump won the 2016 election. We have to know all the things that transpired prior to that. So, Alpha, you ever heard of something known as the 16-year plan?
Mm-hmm.
The 16-year plan, as I understand it, was 8 years of Barack Obama, which was laying the foundation for the New World Order, and then 8 years of Hillary Clinton, and that's where it got interesting. 8 years of Hillary Clinton was going to start with 2 years of war, nuclear war with Russia, with Western nations against Russia, 2 years of a pandemic, and then 4 years of rebuilding into a one-world government. That was endgame. It didn't happen. But if you remember, you go back to 2015 and 2016, do you remember the dangerous rhetoric between Hillary Clinton and Vladimir Putin? How she was threatening to put up military defense shields, missile shields in Ukraine, in Poland, and Putin left the nuclear proliferation treaty, vowed to go to war with Hillary Clinton if she was ever elected? Do you think that Putin maybe tried to make a deal with the alternate candidate, and this is why the Democrats actually went with after Donald Trump for collusion with Russia, because they actually knew that he did somehow communicate with Russia to ensure victory in 2016? Let me lay it out for people. So number one is you have the Uranium One scandal back in 2007 to 2011. This is when Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, with her grand advisor Jake Sullivan, if people don't understand, Jake Sullivan has been there for Obama, Clinton, Biden again. Jake Sullivan is the handler for the deep intelligence apparatus of these politicians. So Jake Sullivan is a great thread to pull if you want to learn all about these scandals. He was there in Benghazi. He was there in Ukraine. He was there in Fast and the Furious. He was there in China. He was there in Venezuela. Massive asset for the deep state right there. And I believe he'll probably be one of the first arrests. But going back to Hillary Clinton, Uranium One scandal, she was taking our uranium supply, which primarily comes from Canada, under a company by the name of Uranium One. Uranium One, by the way, is partially owned by a family known as the Trudeau family. Oh, okay. Well, Rosatom, the Russian uranium company, nuclear program, oil and gas company, massive conglomerate, bought a portion of Uranium One, and Hillary Clinton authorized the transfer of over 30% of U.S. uranium supply to Russia. Well, Russia was taking that uranium and giving it to Iran through proxy. So when we say that Obama gave the uranium to Iran, that's how that uranium got to Iran. And when he left office, he gave them $1.7 billion on a pallet to build their nuclear facilities to refine it. Okay? So that's how they got the uranium, people. Through Rosatom in Russia, through proxy of Canada, with U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton's approval. Now, this was a pay-for-play scandal. Hillary Clinton never saw any real charges, but the Clinton Foundation took in massive donations. And speaking of charges through Russia, but get past that. 2014, 2014, we have Maidan massacre in Ukraine, which we know was orchestrated by the Central Intelligence Agency. Yachanovic, which was the president at the time in Ukraine, was very, very pro-Russia. He did not want to deal with was the mixed accords and mixed agreements that were coming around with the EU. He wanted to deal with Vladimir Putin. He wanted to deal with Russia. He was very, very pro-Russia because he was controlled by the oligarchs. The U.S. knew this, and they knew that they had to control Ukraine. Ukraine is important because when you start looking at Europe, Europe's under the EU, Russia's under the Russian Federation, China has all of their land masses, but Ukraine is an autonomous organization. It doesn't really have international oversight. And this is why the globalist multi-criminal syndicates have utilized it for money laundering and human trafficking for decades, because it's autonomous. There's no oversight through the international community of what happens in Ukraine. Well, guess what? Russia was pinching off of the top of that uranium that they're giving to Iran. They're taking some for themselves. And remember, they were in the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, so they couldn't develop new nuclear weapons, but they were, just not in Russia. They were developing new nuclear weapons in Ukraine. Now, if you had U.S. uranium, which has a certain isotope that you can detect from space with satellites, how do you hide that? Well, what you do is you put it into your underground military bases underneath two nuclear facilities in Ukraine, Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant and Chernobyl. And you start developing new nuclear weapons under there. And that's what Russia was doing circa 2013. Well, 2014 comes in. John Brennan, Eric Cimarella. We know Eric Cimarella. He was the whistleblower on the second Trump impeachment, right? For Ukraine. He was on with Vindman. He was on the Ukraine phone call. Him and Adam Schiff had Eric Cimarella do the whistleblower complaint, Vindman, all this stuff. But you go back to 2014, he was the financier of the Maidan massacre with John Brennan, who brought, it's going to cross my mind, the Russian special military outfit. Why is it crossing my mind? Who's the mercenaries in Russia?
You're talking not the KGB.
No, the mercenary group that was in Ukraine. Jesus. Wagner Group. They bring in the Wagner Group, and they create the Maidan massacre. They knew if that 100 people were killed, there would be a revolution in the street, and that's exactly what they did. They killed 100 people in the Maidan massacre, and they overthrew Yanovic, and they brought in Poroshenko. Now, at the same time, there's an investigator by the name of Shogun, who's investigating this company in the Eastern Donbass region. Now, you got to remember, they want the Eastern Donbass region because there's $1 trillion worth of natural resources, oil and gas there. And there's a lot of oil and gas companies going out there and trying to extract these minerals and resources. But see, the people in the Eastern Donbass are ethnically Russian, and they would not give up their land and territory and never wanted to leave. So Poroshenko comes in and he starts having a Nazi group known as the Azov Battalion start, slamming shells into the Eastern Donbass and killing what they call their own people, but it was really ethnic Russian people, trying to scare them off of this land and get them out of there so they could mine all the minerals from this area. Well, at the same time, Western influence was coming into this area and investing heavily in businesses and starting up business ventures to go out there and mine these resources. A company by the name of Burisma happened to be one of the main companies in the Eastern Donbass that was excavating these minerals. And on the board of directors was 3 specific people. You have Chris Hines, the stepson of John Kerry. You have Devin Archer, and you have Hunter Biden. They also are members of a company called Rosemont Seneca, which happened to be invested in rare earth mineral mining companies in the Eastern Donbass of Ukraine, as well as a biopharma company that was subletted under a government contract under the Defense Intelligence Agency under Black & Veatch, known as Metabiota, that operated 72 biolabs in Ukraine. Now, those bioweapons being developed and utilized by Germany and Moderna operated an organization by Metabiota, oversaw by Black & Veatch and the DIA, were being utilized on the people in the Eastern Donbass. Putin knew this and saw what was going on. And so they had to shut down Shogun from investigating Burisma. So what do you get? You get the vice president at the time, Joe Biden, going on over to Ukraine, and he says, I have $1 billion of USAID And here it is, Mr. President Poroshenko. If you don't shut down this investigation, you're not going to see a penny of that $1 billion. And sure, shit you not. Midnight that night, that prosecutor was fired and that investigation was shut down. They couped Ukraine, number one, to control the strategic resources of the Eastern Donbass. Number two, to kick Russia out and take over their chemical and their radiological weapons department that was operated in secret. And who do you think took that over? Oh, the deep state took that over. Now, the reason I mention this is because in 2014 and 2015, it's almost like the DNC moved in. Because you have a company from the U.S. that gets a contract with Burisma in the Ukraine, a company that had no connection whatsoever over there. And that company's called CrowdStrike. And they installed DNC servers over in the Eastern Donbass region of Ukraine. Now, this is important because we're talking about the 2016 election coming up, right? So what happens next is you get General Flynn running with Donald Trump. General Flynn gets invited to the RT Times, I think it's the 50th anniversary, and by happen chance, he gets seated next to Vladimir Putin, which is kind of interesting. But don't ask him about that because he gets pissed. Okay, I know this because he yelled at me. But before this, you have to understand that he ran the Flynn Intel Agency. And the Flynn Intel Agency only had one client. Did you know this? They only had one client?
All right, I want you to pause real quick on the one client because I want to bring something up that hasn't had a whole lot of people talking, but I think it's gonna end up being significant. And this is one of the names that you just mentioned. Let me read this title. This comes from the New York Post, but it reads: ex-Hunter Biden business partners Devin Archer and Tony Bobulinski smile and hug at Milken conference, steps away from Jill. Well, this is because of a special private event that was held the day before where Bobulinski was going to do a tell-all with regards to Hunter Biden and those things taking place. Now, he does the tell-all, and it just so happens to be that Devin Archer happens to be in the same area of the country, the same time for them to link up together and talk. I don't know, sounds coordinated to me, but I wanted to bring that up because that was just a few months ago. And of all days that special meeting was done was May 5th, 5/5, 5/5.
Crazy. Okay. Going back to my mindset. Now, the Flynn Group only had one client. His name was Camille Akim Apalekin, a Turkish businessman. Now, just so happens that Camille is very good friends with the Turkish president at the time, Erdogan. Now, Erdogan wanted this war criminal by the name of Fethullah Gulen brought back to Turkey to face crimes, treason, murder. But see, what happened is Fethullah Gulen was given amnesty in the United States by Barack Obama and lived in rural Pennsylvania. And Turkey couldn't extradite him back to Turkey to face his crimes. So they hired the Flynn Group to see if Flynn could help. But who was, or who is, one of Erdogan's best friends in the international global community? Vladimir Putin. And what happens next? Flynn goes to the RT Times and gets seated, coincidentally, right next to Vladimir Putin. Right after he worked with Camille and Erdogan of Turkey. Almost like it was proxy. Then all that was done on proxy, and maybe Flynn just flipped him a little script in Russian under the table, and it said something like this. There's a server that's going to be operating on the night of the U.S. election 2016 in Burisma. It's meant to be in Burisma because it has close geographic proximity to Russia. What they are doing is spoofing Russian IP addresses, and they are going to run a software known as Hammer and Scorecard and steal the 2016 election for Hillary Clinton. We are asking you to shut that server down at approximately 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And shit you not, Alpha, on election night 2016, it was neck and neck with Donald Trump until 9 p.m. and all of a sudden Donald Trump started going like this and just taking off. Almost like the software just stopped working. And what do they do?
It's interesting you say that, Josh, because if you guys are familiar with Sheriff Darleaf, he has a connection to some guys tied into the Gretchen Whitmire case. That that whole debacle.
Mm-hmm.
But Sheriff so these guys sent me some information. So I said, you know what? Let me put this email that he put out, right? This press release that's not getting traction. Let me put it on social media. Well, the thing instantly goes viral. Something tells me that was kind of pre-planned. That was used as an instrument on that. I'm good with it. But what's he talking about in there? Well, during the 2024 election, Josh, there were servers in Ukraine using IP addresses coming out of Serbia and other places.
And do you know who owns those servers?
Tell me, brother.
CrowdStrike. So CrowdStrike is a DNC contracted cybersecurity company. They only made it big because the DNC brought them in. Now, this is interesting because we can track the payment of over $400,000 one-time payment from the DNC to CrowdStrike the day after Seth Rich's execution.
Now,
I'm just saying. But I want to also throw this out there. There's another point here to be made.
Well, before you get to the other point with Seth Rich, because I'm good with you on that. There's a theory that I'm continuing to move forward with because I haven't found something to stop me moving forward with it. But if you look at where Seth Rich was murdered and you look at the jurisdiction of that area, there was a certain cop that we know as Officer Michael Fanone involved in the DC Capitol case. And a lot of people wonder, why did this guy become a talking head? Why did he become the Time Life poster boy? Well, would you happen to know, Josh, that when this guy was working undercover, and when you work undercover, and I know because I did that work when I was doing gangs, you know who the players are. If you're a bad guy, let me correct that. If you're a bad cop, you know who the real dirty criminals are that would work with you. You know, corruption does exist.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on it. And like I said, the more that I'm digging, Josh, the more I'm finding to corroborate this theory. That was Fanone's area of operation, that jurisdiction. So it's very interesting.
I see what you're saying.
Maybe it's a coincidence,
there's no coincidences.
But it's very interesting that Seth Rich would get murdered, which they try to sell as a robbery, which we know is not the case. And it happens to be the jurisdiction of a one cop working, you see, at the time of Michael Fanone, who later, after January 6th, gets 2 tattoos on the back of his wrists.
Hanging out with Hunter Biden.
And Nancy Pelosi, all of them. And the tattoos on the back of his wrists, on one, it says, "I'll take their money." And on the other wrist says, "But they don't own me." Whose money did he take? And who's he referencing that doesn't own him?
100%, brother. Now, interesting enough about all of that is, do you remember in 2018 on the Perfect Ukraine phone call? What did Trump say? He said, "President Zelensky, I'm curious, do you have the server? CrowdStrike. I would like Burisma, CrowdStrike. I would love to have my Department of Justice take a look at it." This is what he was talking about, people, was the fact that Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, all of them prior to the election were trying to steal the election of 2016. We haven't even got into FISA-gate, Russia, the tarmac meeting, Admiral Rogers, how that plays in with Comey, all of this. I'm just laying out the military operation that leads up to 2017, but all of this stuff is important and pertinent because I can validate what I'm saying because of what happens next. So,
and let me add some more thoughts to that. And the reason you got to know this, folks, is because this is going to bring us to Epstein. But you got to understand how we get here. You got to understand these connections and these relationships. So please continue, brother.
Sure. So June of 2016, you have something known as the tarmac meeting between Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, the Attorney General, which is forbidden. They cannot meet because Hillary Clinton is running for president in and around that time. Now, we had already had Seth Rich leak the DNC files, which Hillary Clinton's emails from her home server, all of this stuff, right? Now, Bill Clinton meets with Loretta Lynch, and what do they discuss? Oh, just grandchildren. Well, that's not true. We know what they discussed because it was an operation. So the reporter who broke the story at the Fox News affiliate in Phoenix, Arizona, was a guy by the name of Christopher Sine. In his book called Memoirs, his autobiography that he published in 2020 or 2019, he talked about what happened. He said about 5:30 in the morning, he gets a call from Washington, D.C. from an old friend of his high up in the intelligence community by the code name of S. And he says that S told him to get down to the airport because Bill Clinton was about to meet with the Attorney General Loretta Lynch, and it's going to be the biggest story in the world. Why did they want them there? Because the NSA could utilize any digital device to record a conversation. Specifically, if it is public, it can be entered into evidence legally. And they get down there and they record it and they break the story. And the NSA at the time was listening and recording with all the electronic devices. Admiral Rogers, we know this from the boards, Q boards, says that they mislogged that file, saved it, dragged it off before it could get deleted by the deep state of the conversation, which was promising Loretta Lynch, the AG, a Supreme Court seat when Hillary Clinton gets into the presidency if she dropped the email investigation into Hillary Clinton and started the Russia investigation into Donald Trump. Okay? So that's what happened there. Now, going back to Christopher Sine. Christopher Sine was a D1 athlete, played D1 football at the University of Alabama. He was in the same fraternity, had the same alma mater, had the same alma mater and the same fraternity as just so happens somebody in Washington, D.C. that's high up in the intelligence agency. Now, I know who that person is. And guess what? His last name starts with S. You know who it is?
Sessions.
Jeff Sessions. So Christopher Sine is tipped off by Jeff Sessions of the Clinton Lynch tarmac meeting. He goes out there. Now, sad to say this, the Biden administration comes in 2021, right? June 15th, I think it was around June 15th, 2021. Christopher Sine at home in Alabama. At exactly midnight, is hung from the doorknob with a dog leash. Died. Said to be suicide. And we know dog leash doorknob. If you don't know what that means, Arkansas, that is a true symbolism of Hillary Clinton and how she kills people.
Yep.
Okay? So that's some real shit right there, people. Okay, so now let's go back. Because what we begin to realize is that Hillary Clinton's emails have testimony behind them in Congress. Did you know that the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community, Charles McCullough III, testified in front of the House Intelligence Committee, Chairman Chavez, live on public TV? And Chavez asked him, right, this is a Republican from Utah, asked him, said, Inspector General, what was in the classified emails that Hillary Clinton had? And he goes, sir, I can't tell you that. It's classified. And he goes, well, can you just tell us here? And he goes, no. Do we need to go to a SCIF? He goes, I can't tell you even if we went to the SCIF. He goes, whoa, hold on. And Chavez goes, sir, I got the highest security clearance our government grants. I'm the chairman of the Intelligence Committee. I'm a member of the Gang of Eight. What do you mean if we went to a SCIF? You can't even tell me. He goes, sir, let me explain this to you. The contents of the Hillary Clinton emails on her home server that were on there were special access programs, SAP, CAP, and USAP programs. These are the most classified military projects that we have. And Hillary Clinton had unauthorized access to them. Now, we later find out that it was her chief of staff, Jake Sullivan, who got her name onto there. Now, why? Well, why was she on there in the first place? Well, this is where it gets really interesting, Alpha. And then it ties back to everything I said. This is going to be full circle for everybody here, okay? So we learned through the Horowitz report, started around 300, read through, that Hillary Clinton had a metadata on her home email server. Inside the metadata, and this is, what's his name? Awan, It's the one that set up the email server, right? Inside of this, the metadata is a script. Now, Alpha, imagine that if you send an email, it sends the email to the recipient. But let's just say that you forwarded or replied. It now sends a blind carbon copy somewhere else. That's what was happening with Hillary Clinton's email. Okay? Her home server had a script on it that was running in the backdrop, and every time that she forwarded or replied to an email on her home server, the script would run and send a blind carbon copy to a Gmail address. Now, when the Horowitz team went in there, the intelligence community went in there, and they looked at that Gmail address, they found geolocation logins, IP logins from China.
That's bad news, man.
So guess which emails, the only emails ever that Hillary Clinton forwarded or replied to from her home email server, the only ones ever were every single one, 38 of the USAP SAP program emails that she had. The highly classified top secret emails were the only ones she ever forwarded or replied to and sent to her State Department email address. They're the only ones that went to that Gmail server. Now that number, 36 to 38, is really important. Because you remember when I told you that Barack Obama started an educational exchange program?
Right.
What if I told you I know what was in those what was in those emails?
Oh, tell me what they were and tell me how you know.
Okay. Barack Obama created the 1,000 Talents program, the 10,000 Talents program with China, educational exchange, bringing professors over here and over there and exchanging information, all this stuff. When Donald Trump got elected, the first thing he did was shut down all those educational projects, and he started something known through the DOJ as the China Initiative. Over the course of Donald Trump's administration, they indicted 36 college professors. How many classified emails did Hillary Clinton send out?
36.
They indicted 36 college professors. Now, among them is a name that everybody's heard since then because we had COVID, was Dr. Charles Lieber of Harvard University, who was working on nanotechnology, nanomesh technology, who went to the Wuhan Institute of Technology, worked over there, but he was working on mesh layers. And how these operate is it's nanobots that latch onto something known as your ACE2 receptor inside of your cells. Your ACE2 receptor is like the gateway that opens up your cell. And it would latch onto the ACE2 receptor, and then it would take the thermal energy that came off of the cell, and it would translate it into electrical energy and send it out as a signal to other nano machines. That's how the technology he was working on. Highly advanced technology. Now, what's interesting is Dr. Charles Lieber had a grant from the National Science Foundation. Now, I come from the defense world. When you have a grant from DARPA, DOD, DOE, or the NSF, you are most likely working on top secret classified technology. And guess what, Alpha? All 36 professors that were indicted had grants with the National Science Foundation, DARPA, DOD, Department of Energy. They were all working on space systems, space propulsion systems, space weapon systems, space energy systems, nanotechnology, AI, and quantum computing. What was in Hillary Clinton's emails? It was the special access programs that were being reverse engineered exotic technology from the military that were being put out into the universities to be basically redeveloped and commercialized through the Obama administration. They infiltrated these projects. They got the technology out through giving these grants to these professors. So Hillary Clinton was sending the emails to China with the information of the educational institution and the professor receiving the grant to work on those special access programs. And we know this because Donald Trump came in, started the China Initiative, and the first thing he did is arrested 36 professors across the board. Now, that's what was in Hillary Clinton's emails, but guess what? That's the same thing that how all this began in 2007, 2008. Stolen military secrets. It wasn't nuclear technology. It wasn't plutonium triggers that operate ICBMs. It was highly classified special access program technology that was being systematically stolen out of the system and given to foreign adversaries. And this is what the generals wanted to shut down from the get-go. And that's where it begins, 2017. Because now We got a whole new world to deal with because we just won the big, large battle. We just stopped World War III from happening between the 16-year plan, Hillary Clinton and Vladimir Putin. Putin shut down the server in Burisma at 9 p.m. They're investigating Donald
and real
Trump.
quick to that, because symbolism's important, Josh.
Yes, it is.
What did Putin hand to President Trump?
Soccer ball. Helsinki, 2019.
Now, do you know what's interesting about that particular year in those particular soccer balls, as I understand it?
What's that?
That's the first time those soccer balls had chips in them for tracking during the events.
That's right. Not only that, it's guessed that there was a thumb drive in there with the contents.
That's where I'm going
with the contents of the Burisma server.
And if we know that these soccer balls are symbolism, what did President Trump hand to his current attorney general about 2 weeks ago?
Ooh, get me on this one.
He gave her a soccer ball.
Yeah,
I will send you the video on that one, bro. Because the exchange of it. As a matter of fact,
you gotta send that to me.
I'll look for it right now so the audience can see it, because the exchange between the two of them when he gives it to her, you're like, get the fuck out of here. You're like, we've seen this before. So you keep talking. I'm gonna find that video.
Yeah. So now 2017. This is 2017 that we're culminating on, guys. Now we have to take back over the idea of information. We've won the White House. We don't have to worry about World War III at the moment. It doesn't really matter what the Democrats do because there's a plan in place over the next decade to systematically destroy them. And the first part of destroying them is taking back the idea of information. In early 2017, after Donald Trump got inaugurated, if you were on 4chan, if you remember being on 4chan, there is tons of different profiles coming out claiming to be White House insider or somebody inside the FBI with top secret knowledge. They were all over the place. Now, interesting enough, if anybody remembers, there was a person that claimed to be Donald Trump. Do you remember this? There was a person on there that claimed to be Donald Trump on 4chan. And everybody was like, no way, it's not Donald Trump. If so, on your Twitter account, post this. 2 minutes later, he posted it. And it was believed that they walk among us on 4chan. Anybody remembers this? 2017. Soon after this, an anonymous poster begins posting about Hillary Clinton. It's brought to light by a thread on Reddit known as The Great Awakening. You know Melissa Redpill? She was one of the moderators on the original Great Awakening thread. I was there, many other people there. Another person, there's two other people that were there, and people might know these names, and I'll get into them in a second, but it's interesting because you can trace the connection to these people. Okay? So, now, do I believe the original Q posts, the 11-3 Hillary Clinton, were Trump in the military? I don't. I think 14 and prior, or 13 and prior, were somebody else. And who I believe they were these two people. One of them is known as FBI Anon. He's a graphic designer and a social influencer from South Africa. The other one is this female woman who was kind of a grifter throughout the Ron Paul days, trying to sell Ron Paul merch on YouTube. But they're the ones that helped start the Great Awakening thread, and they started the Twitterverse on Q. And it was with these first 10 posts.
She continued to grift and went after getting on the DeSantis bandwagon before that was.
Oh, yeah, I know. As well. and this person's name, the female's name, by the way, is Tracy Beans. Right? And by the way, anybody who doesn't know this, the guy by the name of FBI Anon, you might know him as Joe M. Sorry to break it to you. Okay? They are not military, not affiliated with the military, but guess what? Around the same time, General Flynn had already left the Trump administration. Now, do you find it interesting that in post 14 on the Q boards, the tone changed? Everything changed. If you look at it from a psychological perspective, start at post 14 and now go forth. and it'll all start to make sense.
And here's what you guys can do for those of you that are comfortable using artificial intelligence is, and I would invite you to use different platforms of artificial intelligence. And yes, I see you guys. I want to see the video sauce. I got it queued up, you guys. I'm going to bring it up so you guys can see it right now. But if you get posts 1 through 13, and you copy that text and you put them into artificial intelligence and tell them to analyze it, and then you get from 14 and do the next 30 and ask them.
Completely different psychological profiles.
Completely different. So before you go, let me bring this video up on the screen. It's both of the videos side by side. Shout out to my boy Patriot Storm 17. Today's his birthday. Happy birthday, brother.
Oh, Patriot Storm. He's awesome, dude.
He's an awesome guy. This video comes from his profile. So let's take a watch. This is so the two videos you've seen, the one on top is the one where Trump's going to give it to Bondi. The one on the bottom is obviously where Putin's giving it to President Trump. So here we go.
This is awesome. The ball is in your court.
That is significant, bro.
That is huge.
That is significant. I'll drop
now
the,
it goes to this
in the chat for you guys that want to get it.
There's post 14. All right, people, this is post 14. Now, there's a lot of nuggets in this, but military intelligence, state secrets upheld through
Zoom in it first, if you can, brother, please. All right, solid.
Now, this is it. Why did Admiral R. NSA meet Trump privately without authorization? Because he found out that they had open FISA warrants on them, went to warn Trump at Trump Tower. I mean, we can go through all this, but I just wanted people to see that this is where things begin to change on a lot of the Q boards. And this is where I believe one person took over. And that one person then turns into many different people who are already working on an operation prior to this. So you have to understand, this group of generals, they were working on this since 2007 with what I just talked about. Now it's taking back the idea of information, and we have to create a movement. Now, let me ask you, Alpha. Do you remember having Patrick Byrne on and Patrick Byrne saying something about somebody about being an expert in movement warfare? Do you remember who that person was?
I believe that person was a general.
General...
initials MNF?
Michael Flynn. That's right. So, did you know that Tracy Bean sits on the board of directors of multiple charities and organizations ran by General Michael Flynn? She came on board in and around 2017, 2018.
I do.
Isn't it interesting of the timing of all of that? Tracy Bean's one of the strongest proponents of the Q movement. Helped create the social prospect of Q. All of a sudden is nobody. She's a nobody. She starts getting retweeted and reposted by General Michael Flynn. Then becomes on his board of directors and everything. And now she won't touch Q. Doesn't talk about it. Doesn't talk about much. Remember John Sullivan talking about how in a few nights prior to the 2016 election, a black car rolled up to his house about midnight, and two guys got out of the vehicle that he knew and recognized but never knew personally, and handed him 2 red folders of information and said, "We don't know who to trust with this. Here you go. Please investigate," and walked away. That was Crossfire Hurricane. Do you know who those 2 guys were?
I have a strong feeling.
I know who those 2 guys were. I'll tell you later. I can't tell this. No offense, guys. I can't tell you. But I know who those guys were. But understand that this has all been in the works. Now, if you have someone who comes in who's a general and a master at movement warfare, and the idea is to take back over the idea of information, how do you do that? You create a psychological warfare campaign for good. You direct it at Second Amendment, conspiracy theorists, doomsday preppers, Christians, and patriots. And you go in there and you lay out the grand conspiracy with publicly available information through breadcrumbs. And you partition it and you disseminate it and you put it all sprung out over a context of about, what, 5, 6 years, 7 years? And then you let them put it all together themselves because they'll absolutely love doing it.
Let me interject here. This is tell me, I'm sure you've heard this phrase, Josh. You can't tell them, you have to
show them.
Show them.
You can't tell people the truth. You have to show people the truth.
Now, everybody understands the obvious context to this. You know, certain things in IRL that you're gonna have to see. But people I think people miss the ball or the pitch on this one, that this is the way the board functions as well.
That's right.
This is why the board is
you have all of this from 2017 to 2022 that laid the path. Future proves the past. The past, the boards. Future, what's about to happen.
Because when
you can't tell the people, now we're getting shown.
100%, because when you go and you read at said posts, I'll use 2121 because 21 is my favorite number. I have no idea what it says. I'm just putting it out there just in case
people no coincidences.
That would be awesome. Now I am curious. Bring it up, brother. But if you were to go to post 2121 and research it, it's going to present information that you're like, I got to dig into this. So when you start digging and you start finding and you start uncovering and you start writing your list of notes and your diagrams, that's them showing you, not telling you. And that is how you get somebody psychologically and emotionally invested into something, because now there's skin in the game. Well, what's the skin in the game, Alpha? It's time. And that is why these specific demographics, or a term, if you read the books from Boone and General Flynn, that's why certain targeted audiences were targeted, because they understood that these people, their foundation for character,
Anon's an artist.
This was it was always going to work to perfection, because they already had the character profile of these people.
Right. Now, if we could just get them on social media, which is the new way that people consume information. It's no longer about 30-minute or 60-minute news sessions on paid-for cable TV. It's about the 2 to 3 minute video clip or the meme or the 124-character tweet. If we can get people to start putting real information out there that's about to happen in the news, people will begin following them as actually distributing the news. And that will eventually take over the mainstream news. And guess what? It worked. It worked. And you know what why the reason it worked was, Alpha?
Tell me.
Because they came after us. They did exactly with what Q said they would do. They're going to attack you. They're going to come after you. They're going to shut you down. Do you remember QAnon was talked about in Congress? They tried to pass a bill. They shut down 8chan. Congress shut down 8chan. What are they so afraid of? Some dude in his grandma's basement fucking eating his boogers, smelling his farts on a keyboard? What are they so afraid of? You know what they were afraid of? Is that it really was Trump. That it really was Flynn. That it really was the generals. And they really were informing the public. But they really were forming an army of digital warriors, because they missed out on the digital revolution and were so far behind, and we had a head start. So what did they do next? They deleted us. They shut us down all overnight. They weaponized the government against the corporations and the corporations against us, and they shut us down. And guess what? That was their biggest failure. That is what lost the war for them.
They forced the conversations into areas they were not prepared to contain.
That's right. And also they created alternative platforms that had plenty of funding waiting for them. And those platforms began to run up. Other platforms began to decrease. And what happens? Twitter gets sold. Now is X. You have Rumble skyrocketing up there in the user base. How did that happen? Rumble, I will be 100% honest, and Chris can agree with me or not on this. Rumble was created by Anons. Anons are the ones who brought Rumble to life. It is people like you, me, and Badlands. This is what Rumble was about. This is who Rumble is. It is the epitome of alternative media. This is where we all came to. And it's a beautiful place because we all have a voice. And it's one of the most popular video watching apps in the world because of us. Because we changed the narrative. We redefined the idea of information. We are the media. And that's what that movement was all about.
So a few moments ago, I made the statement they weren't prepared for contingencies on how to contain the way they force these conversations into. And some people that have been following my content for some time will probably have heard this before, but nonetheless, it's a big enough audience that I want to share it again. I can tell you right now, Josh, the deep state was not prepared for Elon to buy Twitter.
Oh, God.
That was not on their bingo card. How do you know this, Alpha? Let me tell you, right? They knew that they had isolated us to places like Truth Social, Getter, Gab, Rumble, and they knew that even though we were in these locations, we didn't have the opportunity to market that we're in those locations because the main places that we do those marketings, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, those were all controlled entities. So if you went over there to market, you were going to get shut down. So they had this control. So when Elon bought Twitter, this is how I know there was a panic. The second he announced it, and I know this because people have already come forward to me, there was a recruitment that went in real time to Clubhouse. People were paid, and I know this because they've already told me, and some more significant sums than others. They were paid money to come to Twitter to push agendas. Now, why this? Because when they had control over Twitter, they had how fast were we censored, deplatformed, thrown in Twitter jail? They had the ability to control content easily. When they heard that Elon was going to buy it, they said, "Oh shit, we're not going to be able to censor and suspend these accounts anymore." And so now we have to restructure how we're going to battle on Twitter. That's why the massive recruitment of all these accounts that they were going to pay and control, because now the new battle was not going to be censorship through suspension. It was going to be, let's flood the domain with so much information and so many different perspectives and so much propaganda and so much BS. Nobody's going to know what the truth is because we're going to put too much information out there. That's what ended up happening. That's what took place. And so when you had this migration that came over from Clubhouse to X, a lot of the people that were around in the beta stages of space, you knew the way it was handled. It was something different from those that are familiar with Periscope and these other platforms. All these platforms kind of have their own identity, the way
Like
these conversations
Periscope. I miss Periscope.
I tapped into it a little bit, but anyways, I'll shorten it up here. The point what I'm trying to say is that is what shifted an X. So when I started to learn through my research and investigation of these people's statements that this is what happened, that told me they weren't prepared for this. So that means as sophisticated as the deep state is, and as much predictive technology that they have, they're also getting caught off guard.
Now, I want to show you how the Q boards are behind the purchase of X by Elon Musk. Whether people realize it or not, did you know that Q is the reason why Elon was able to buy X? Well, now X, but Twitter. 117. Go here. Those are two Chinese vessels. Don't worry about them right now. But read this. Why was the arrest of Alaweed and others important? Remember, Donald Trump freed Saudi Arabia. Because Alaweed was a deep state, bloody wonderland running through the Saudi embassy in New York City. How was Alaweed and Barack Obama tied to Huma? Why did Alaweed finance pre-political days? Let me ask you something. So Alaweed was put under house arrest in Saudi Arabia, converted back, and no longer a deep stater. Okay? That happened under the first Trump administration. Do you know who the one shareholder at Twitter who was stopping Elon Musk from buying Twitter?
No shit.
Alaweed. Do you want to know the one shareholder who eventually caved and allowed Elon majority share? Alaweed.
No shit. Oh, shit, bro. Oh, that one's gold. That one's gold. I wasn't ready for that one.
Now here's the key. Epstein files. That's why they're important, undisclosed. Because now you have leverage over a Saudi prince who's the major shareholder of Twitter, and you want to get the Twitter files out. You want this investigation to start. You want Elon Musk to own it so we can have free speech back. Guess what? Make a few phone calls. Trump calls over to the Crown Prince. The Crown Prince calls over to Alaweed, says, sell your fucking share of Twitter, or we're gonna have some problems. He sells it. Elon buys it. Ta-da! Guys, there are two systems operating in the background. The white hats, the black hats. The good guys, the bad guys. It truly is, in a context, a military operation, or that's at least how it started. Right now, a lot of those military guys are retired. One of them, by the way, one of them is very, very close to Donald Trump right now as an administration. And he is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. His name is General Raisin Dan Kane, and I've been talking about him for years, and nobody's really started talking to him just about until a few months ago.
You're going to make me bring something else on. Keep going. I'm going to bring this up. You know what I'm going to bring.
Raisin Dan Kane. If you don't know who Raisin Dan Kane is, man, you need to go read my blogs over my Substack, redpillproject.substack.com. Raisin Dan Kane was one of two F-8 or F-16 pilots flying over Washington, D.C. on September 11th. He was the one given command authorization to shoot down and kill the aircraft before it flew into the Pentagon. That command authorization was given to him by Major General Gurley of the Washington, D.C. Air National Guard. I know this because I knew Major General Gurley right before he fucking died, because he was going to testify at a mock Congress in 2009 that we were hosting in Washington, D.C. with congressmen and senators, but he happened to be on the front car of the Metro D.C. train crash where 3 levels of brakes, electronic brakes, primary brakes, and tertiary brakes, all failed, and he died. I was the one coordinated with Major Gurley to get him to speak at that event. Now, that was his commanding officer, Raisin Dan Kane. Now, Raisin Dan Kane testified in front of the 9/11 Commission. That testimony is still classified to this day. In other words, Dan Kane knows what the hell flew into the Pentagon. If you didn't get it, Dan Kane knows what flew into the Pentagon because he was the F-16 following it. Which my guess is it was a Tomahawk cruise missile dressed as a drone that looked like a 767. That's my thoughts. No.
I don't disagree with you. Let me jump in here on this, and and me and you
Go ahead.
We've talked about this before. So, Josh was one of the first people, and he's only one of 3 people that I ever even heard mention Major General Raisin Dan Kane. And when we heard Trump bring him up in that speech, I went to X and I made this post, and it reads. It has this promotion thing covering it, but it says, "You're all about to see why this man is so important. Raisin Kane." That's it. One sentence. There's no game theory here. There's nothing here other than that post and his name. I posted it before I went to bed at 7:11 my time, so 10:11 East Coast time. 7:11, pretty interesting. I didn't do that on purpose, but I posted it at 7:11. I wake up in the morning. This thing's already over 2 million views. And over the course of the next couple of days, it goes another. This thing is the most viewed post that I've ever put out there. It's sitting right now at just over 3.1 million views.
Yep.
For a photo and
Now,
one
do you-
sentence. You know
Do you
what
know who gave him the order not to shoot down the plane over the Washington, D.C.?
You've told me, but I don't remember, so remind me.
Vice President Dick Cheney, who happened to be at the Pentagon. Now, Alpha, under the U.S. Constitution, how much military authority, command authority, does the Vice President have?
Very limited. Very, very, very limited.
0. Under the Constitution, 0. Now, For anybody out there, if you want to know where Dan Cain did, 2016, he starts working for the Donald Trump administration as a general. He gets deployed to Afghanistan. He runs special operation forces through Afghanistan and Syria and annihilates the ISIS caliphate within 6 months, which was said to take, it's going to take 6 years and billions of dollars to do. This man did it in 6 months. After that, Donald Trump in 2019 gave him a very, very 2018 gave him a very, very cush job over at the Pentagon. This man right here happened to oversee all of the Pentagon's project approvals, funding, and got read into every single one of the special access programs at the Pentagon. He ran the Department of Special Access Programs. When people tell you that Donald Trump is read into UFOs and UAPs and all that stuff, this is the... Remember when Donald Trump says that he interviewed Colonel Favor or Captain Favor, the pilot that saw the UAP over the ocean? Everybody's like wondering, when the hell did Donald Trump interview this Navy pilot who watched this UFO? This is the man who brought Donald Trump that pilot. Understand that Donald Trump was read into those projects. Now, let me ask you this. If Donald Trump is going to create a special access program during his time as president, this is the man he would have to get the approval from. And this man and that man alone could create a special access program, fund it through the U.S. military, like Fort Belvoir, like a criminal investigation to open up FISA warrants into Joe Biden and various other deep staters who are about to come into the new White House, and allow that FISA to go out there and data collect over the next 4 years. I'm just saying, it's always 100%. A possibility.
So to the reason I bring this up, the point I want to make with people, and one, I think you should grab that link on the write-up that you did on him and drop that in the chat, because I know a lot of people are going to want to really dig into this guy, and you put together a really good one. Once Josh drops it in the chat, you guys, you definitely, and shout out Petty429 gifted a subscription. Thank you. A lot of Rumble rants came in, folks, and we will read those at the end of the show, we promise. But the point I'm trying to make here, this thing went viral because they made it go viral. There's no one that's going to change my mind on this, because it came at a time when President Trump mentioned his name, and this started to go and populate the way it did is because they wanted this man's name and who he is to become conversation. They wanted this to be a name that people recognize, like General Michael Flynn and others. And so I would tell people and invite people, go and start telling your social media family about this man. Make this man a name that everybody recognizes so everybody understands why this guy's so important. So with that, Josh, I'll give it back to you.
Yeah, so I just put out there the multi-domain battlefield stolen secrets that goes a little bit into Dan Cain. There's an X post that I did on Dan Cain that is a complete breakdown of it. I will pull that one up next. But he is the man, the myth, the legend, people. This is the dude that you want to understand, because he is the military mind operating behind Donald Trump. When Q says less than 10, Dan Cain is one of the less than 10 people. You got to understand this. This man is so critical and important to what is happening right now. He's almost like a liaison between Trump and the other Patriot generals. And hopefully I can find that Twitter post.
That's a good one, bro. If you don't, I bookmarked it. I'll go back through all. I got a shitload of bookmarks.
Yeah, here's another one for people on my X, and follows do help. But there's another one on my X for Dan Cain you guys can look at. But I got shows upon shows upon shows on that I did on Dan Cain for people out there. So kind of where are we at right now? We're really at the beginning of the Q boards. We're not really getting into the conspiracy aspect of next. I think what we do next week, Alpha, is we talk a lot about FISA-gate, the origins, how it all came about. And when I say that, I'm talking about, if you guys understood tonight when this conversation, it's probably completely different than anything you've ever heard about Q and the Q movement before in your life. If I'm right on that, this is completely different than anything you've ever heard. Give a thumbs up, guys. Hit that thumbs up. Give that likes. We appreciate them, but it does help us stay here on Badlands if you want us to stay on Badlands.
And y'all better want it. Better want it.
Elise said, loving the new show. Congratulations, Alpha and Josh. $10 Rumble rant. And there's a whole bunch of Rumble rants in there. I don't know if you want to cover those right now.
I think we're done for part 1 on this Plan to Save America. So I think we can move into the Rumble rants now, because that'll put us close to the 2-hour mark. I gather these shows are probably going to be somewhere in the ballpark, you guys, of 2 hours to 2.5 hours once we start doing the call-ins. So yeah, let's do the Rumble rants, and then we'll wrap it up with that. And just so you guys know, we will be continuing with part 2 next week, and then after that we'll get into part 3. And by that time, we're going to start bringing in the conversations with what's going on in the current state with Epstein and some things that are unfolding. And it's all going to make sense the way we're phasing this for you guys. And so I know you guys, well, come on, let's just get into Epstein right now. And yes, it would be fun, but it's not about being fun. There's tons of people on social media out there that want to make it fun. We want to make this so you see how it applies. And so all the people out there that are trying to subvert the support for President Trump, you can be like, oh, hell no, you guys are full of it. So with that, where do we leave? You want to read the Rumble rants? Because you know where we left off at.
I think we missed a few, but I got Atomic Blonde, $50 Rumble rant. Job well done, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Atomic Blonde. We appreciate that. We have Jody IVRN. Gentlemen, I am so honored to hear this info out loud because I've been researching and listening to this info since 2019, and my friends thought I was nuts. You are not nuts, I assure you. Thank you so much, Jody. I appreciate that. Tracy Bliss, MAGA, Tracy and Sean. Thank you so much, Tracy, right there. Appreciate you guys. And then Alicia just said,
and all three of those were $50 Rumble rants, you guys. So thank you very much for that.
That's right. And going to YouTube, I'll see what we got going on here on YouTube. We have Peter Friedrich sent 5 Badland Media gift memberships. So awesome. Thank you for that. And thank you on YouTube. Those are the only 2 channels that I have to chat on. We'll have to make sure John kind of adds me as a mod on those as well.
I have, let me catch up on the other ones here. I might read 2 or 3 you already read from earlier today, but that's okay. I want to make sure we didn't miss it. I got a $10 Rumble rant from Up North Soon. Much needed show. Love the energy and content. $5 Rumble rant from Free Dove 77. Alpha, please don't forget to put an American flag on sleeves of tees. Thanks. I would love to do that and all this stuff, but it does increase the price of the tees when we do that. And I try to keep everything as affordable. We'll see. We'll see if we can definitely pull that off. I love the flag just as much as you do. $5 one coming in from Susie Q20. 2 of my favorite We Are the Media Now guys. Great kickoff. Thank you, Susie. $50 Rumble rant from Breadmaker62, OG supporter. Wishing you both every success. Semper Paratus. Thank you for that. $2 from True Bins. Godspeed, brothers. We have to start this fight that our kids and grandkids will hopefully finish. Hopefully we can finish the fight and they can deal with the joy from that and not have to fight anymore. $10 one from The Final Demand. The last conversation I saw with you guys was amazing. Welcome back to Badlands, Josh. $10 from GL Smith 1183. Heart Hands Defcon. Thank you for that. And then $2 from True Bins. Failed assassination equals DEI. $25 from Texas Jules, another OG right there. The show has me pumped up. Great first episode, guys. I'm already a fan. Thank you for that. And then $10 from Lopat67, unfiltered, uncensored, unfolding. This is the only first episode, and I can't wait for the next Tuesday night. 100, monkey covering their ears, American flag, and getting down to the last ones here. $20 from U.S. Advocate. Great show. Thanks. And a couple that just came in here. $10 from Miss Ria Freedom Fighter. Does anyone know where Jeff Sessions is? You want to comment on that real quick, Josh?
I will. Soon. And the reason I say that is because one of the things that I've been saying is that what we're seeing with the Epstein stuff is forcing the Trump administration. Because you got to remember, if Trump and Bondi came out and just opened up the Epstein files, the deep state would come out and say, oh, they're doing it as revenge. They planted that information. But if you have a special counsel, a special prosecutor assigned to it, that's kind of neutral in it, then it looks way worse. And what did they just came out with today? The Trump administration has drastically changed their approach to the Epstein situation, with some powerful people inside the administration now calling for a special counsel and public briefings. Nobody's heard from Jeff Sessions since February 2021. I think we could see the return of Jeff Sessions as a special counsel.
100%.
Former attorney general, lawyer, senator in the Intelligence Committee for over 30 years. Jeff Sessions, not on the Epstein list.
If there's anything you've learned from President Trump through these two administrations, he has made his attorney generals weapons.
Yep.
If you look at all the controversy that surrounds these people in these positions and the things that they were tasked with as his AGs, this man, it's chess. Trump is phenomenal with them. Some more Rumble Rants came in. Love you guys. $5 from EH Kyle. Wasn't General Quas the other pilot on 9/11? Loving the show, Alpha and Josh.
No, Quas was not the pilot. The other pilot that was a female was actually the other pilot. But Quas was a pilot, just not there at September 11th.
And General Quas is very, very important.
Oh, less than 10.
$10 from the final demand. Josh said Clinton's server was sending something the military was reverse engineering to China. Reverse engineering what?
So special access program information. So if you go back and listen to the whole show, I talk about stolen military secrets. And what we show is that Inspector General in the intelligence community Charles McCullough III testified in front of Congress about the 36 special access program emails that were on the Hillary Clinton email server that were sent to her State Department server that were batched in the metadata script that were sent to a Gmail address, which was tied to China. What was in those 36 emails? Well, I showed you when Trump came in, the China initiative was implied. 36 college professors were arrested. Every single one of them was working on a National Science Foundation grant, a DARPA grant, a DOD grant, Department of Energy grant, all dealing with space systems, space materials, space propulsion, space weapon systems. You have artificial intelligence, nanotechnology, and quantum computing. So what was in those emails was the professors and universities that were going to receive the top secret classified grants to reverse engineer exotic alien technology that was in our black military programs that was now being pushed out into the universities. And we know this because if you go back and we were talking about stolen military secrets, who was involved in that? A company by the name of EG&G was at the heart of the AGM-125 nuclear missile broken arrow situation, as well as the Defense Logistics Agency radio batteries story that I talked about. EG&G has a history of it worked with the Manhattan Project, directly connected to Edward Teller. Bob Lazar talked about them. They ran the Janet flights. They built Area 51. They were the first government agency after Roswell to take possession of the craft and move it from Ohio right pat to Area 51. And this comes from UFO history. If you kind of know a little bit about that, Chupacabra, we should have him on someday.
Oh, yeah, you would be a great guy to have on, man.
But so when I start talking about this is the idea that they were trying to get this information out of these black projects. By the way, there's two deep states. There's the neocon deep state, and then there's the liberal communist deep state. How do we know this? George Herbert Walker Bush, Daddy Bush, was the CIA director, and he was read into all these secrets. And he vowed never to release this information to Bill Clinton. When Bill Clinton came in, you got to remember, John Podesta was his chief of staff. Bill Clinton came in and ran saying that he was going to release the truth about UFOs and aliens. He never did. Podesta came out and they couldn't get access to it. Obama couldn't get access to it. As in, they wouldn't let the liberal deep state get access to that. It was primarily ran by the neocons and by the right conservative side of the deep state.
So they are showing us a lot of love on the Rumble Rants right here. I want to make you guys understand something, because I know some of you, I see a lot of people saying, man, I missed the beginning of the show. One, go back and watch it. But here's the thing. The next 3 shows, listen, I understand you guys can go to Rumble and YouTube. There's a lot of people out there that push out information on cue. We want to make sure that you as the audience understand it the correct way. It's inception, the foundation of it, because as we address this moving forward, we want to make sure you guys as our audience understands it the way we understand it, so you understand the perspective and the pattern recognition that we're going to talk about moving forward. That's why we're going to spend 3 shows breaking this down so you guys understand that. So continuing on with the Rumble Rants, $20 Rumble Rant coming in from Chris Pie 13. So glad to see you on Badlands, Josh. Me too. $5 come in from Vegas Deplorable 26. Damn good show, gentlemen. Packed full of info. You two are a great source of information. I'm sure will last the test of time. Salute. And Vegas Deplorable, just so you know, I pull out that Marine Corps sword that you give me probably about once a week, bro, and act like I'm slaying the dragon. So thank you for that. $5 from Mindy Q. My son and I love this show. And thank you for watching this show with family. Chris Pie again, 13. Alpha. You're appreciated bigly too. Thank you. And that was a $20 rum rat. So solid. $10 coming in from Walker75. This show is starting out with a bang. Great work, guys. American flag. Again, Mindy Q. Were they sending the stolen technology to our universities or China's universities?
Oh, I never explained how all that operated. Kind of how it worked is once they had the professors in the university, China would come in and give a grant money to that university, and then they would request certain professors, the ones obviously in the emails, to come over to China. The professors would go to China like the Wuhan Institute of Technology. China would put them up and have them give a big presentation and talk about their work. But at nighttime, this is when it really happened. And this is why the Epstein stuff is so important. They would go to a hotel room. China would put them up for the night. About midnight, somebody would come in that room. They would put their hand over their mouth. They would put a 45 to their head. And they would have a little boy or girl come in. They'd have them do horrible stuff to them. They'd videotape it. And they say, we have you for life unless you want this to get out. And if you don't, the next is a bullet in your head. Give us all of your intel. Give us all of your research and your information. And this is how China advanced their military technology. 50 years of advancement in just 10 years.
Which is going to lead to a conversation we're going to have on this show where you guys understand the race to super intelligence and why it's so important and what's at risk with that. Last two that looked like came in, $20 from Maloster. If I said it correctly, if I didn't, break it down for me, ring curl style with syllables so I can get it right next time. Love the information. Thank you guys. See you next week. We will see you next week. And the last one, $10 from Miss Rhea, Freedom Fighter again. Bill Clinton was always jogging. Why was he still fat?
Because he wasn't jogging for health. He was jogging for show.
100%. $20. A Larson 907 got one in.
Like, hold on. Like Biden riding the bike.
Oh,
Biden has dementia and doesn't even know where he is. Why is he riding the bike? It's for show.
Yeah, they should have strapped his feet to the pedals.
Well, they did. That's why he fell.
That's probably what it was. $20 from A Larson 907. I'm a Q guy. I like this so much more than the original Q show. Not naming names, LOL. I see what you did there, A Larson 907.
See, I'm an OG, guys. I've been around since 2017. I started as Q Patriot, not showing my face, behind the scenes, doing decodes. I got thousands of decodes. Been doing this for a long time, so I'm glad you like it better than not naming names. I appreciate that.
And apparently they don't want us off the air because another one came in. Every dollar counts. $1 from Lori. Sorry. Love me some Josh. Been watching the Daily Dose for years. Well, could have added Alpha in there, but I'm not gonna hold that Alpha against you. You guys, listen. We survived on YouTube. I was watching it the whole time. I was just like, don't let us.
YouTube's changed.
You know what? I'm thinking
after their CEO, Susan Wojcicki, died. Amazing.
I'm hearing a lot of people saying they got success over there. It's just, the frustration, bro. I've already made 9 channels that have gone taken down. There's so much work that goes into it.
Just don't talk about the that's the only thing. Just don't talk about that and you're fine.
So maybe it's time for Alpha to bring the AlphaWarrior Show back over there. Real quick, you guys. Josh, if people want to find more of you and not wait till Tuesday night, where can they find you?
Well, if people go to the chat, they're going to see some links pop up in there. They can go there and check that out. My primary website is redpills.tv, REDPILLS. And then if you look right underneath my name here, redpillproject.substack.com. All my writings there, all my research is there. That's where I post it. It's on any of premium subscription that you get for me. You can get a lot of that stuff. But Substack's the best place. And then X at Real Joshua Reed. So give me a follow. I got to catch up to Alpha. I'm catching up to him on Rumble, but he far exceeded me on X because he does more spaces. So make sure to follow me on X at Real Joshua Reed because I got to catch up with Alpha.
100%. And thank you guys. You guys about 2 weeks ago maybe crossed that 100,000 mark. So definitely appreciate it. You guys can find all things Alpha. Go to alphawarrior.tv. You'll find everything there. And hopefully, if our team didn't get the links in the description tonight, we'll get them for you guys on the next show. And 2 more Rumble Rants came in, and we'll read them since they're here. $5 coming from Stacy Anderson 9. Haha, got it in here soon enough. Yes, you did. And last one, $10 from All Good Lori. Love Alpha 2. And she added $9 more than she did for you. So I just want to point that out there. You got $1, Josh. I got 10. So totally solid with that. You guys, since we did survive on YouTube, I'm not gonna play the video I did have because I know that will get a copyright issue on YouTube.
Play the one I sent you.
So what I will do, I don't have that one downloaded either. So we'll save both those for next week. And what I will do is I'll close out the video with the original thumbnail intro video for Defcon 0, just as kind of a throwback. But if you guys love the intro for tonight's show, the gentleman that did it, Josh, because there's other people out there starting podcasts and maybe they want someone to do their intro for. So where would they find this guy?
So if you want to get a hold of Nate and Up Down Media, I have his contact information. Just reach out to myself or Alpha, and we will make an introduction for you.
And shout out to him. He did, there's
he's
no way.
Phenomenal, man.
No
he does
way
my intros, my outros.
Yeah. I would say there's no way I could have created this intro. It was hands down him. So, but what I will do is I will play us out on the old school intro from the premiere, and we will catch you guys next week, 10:30 p.m. Eastern. Do us a solid. Let everybody know Defcon 0, unfiltered, uncensored, unfolding is here. Let's double the audience next week if we can. So with that, you guys, good night. Semper Fi. Remember the ads. The ads and the sponsors all down in links below. We'll catch you guys next time. Peace.
Let's